Alright, welcome back to Full House 7th edition, where we were playing Vanheim. It was turn 23, and the full live narration will pick up next turn on 24. We've got a storm against a Pangean fort this turn. We also finished research in Construction 4, and then we're headed to Conjuration 4, no doubt on our way to Conjuration 5 for those full-sized air elementals. And we have a couple of battles here, mostly against Pangaea, also against the Independence. It does look like Pangaea rode out, so we'll take a look at that after we observe our Vanheres. Hopefully just cleaning up. Yeah, this is almost completely soulless, so we should chop through this really easily. I guess really probably the only danger, really Phantasmal Warrior Buddy. Should have set him to advance and cast spells. Clearly our banishment is not actually very long range, so we're hoping to get some banishment. Luckily, Vanheres don't really mind chopping up a bunch of soulless without any help. So definitely should have cleaned this out sooner, just, you know, didn't believe enough in our Vanheres. And hopefully we'll roll this immediately into the other more valuable province right next door. And then this is our oversized raid, I don't know, medium raiding force. 12 Vanheres, double what we just saw, going up against a Pangean province, and looks like a pretty standard amount of province defense here with a pretty crappy PD type as well. And indeed we take that with no losses, as should be expected. Hey, a herdman snuck in there, so not quite double the Vanheres that we saw from the previous battle. Then we have Archocephaly breaking the siege. We would expect there's probably nothing on here. Yeah, because Calum just suffered a pretty nasty loss. And there are still a lot of Wind Riders left, although it looks like, yep, just the Prophet. You know, one commander, really, after everything that's happened? But here we are. So, you know, that works out for Archocephaly. Obviously, they are loose. They have 28 Wind Riders. That is nothing to sneeze at. Glad that that's not our problem. Speaking of our problem, we've got the White Centaur. Probably. Yep, here they are, with some mage support. Well, oh yeah, no, definitely some mage support here. So we've got some of these Centaur mages. They're not fantastic. They're only, like, yeah, they get a priest level. That kind of hurts. Otherwise, they get one actual magic level. Still, we've got some nature ones here with nature gems. I'm assuming that this is Swarm. Not sure what the earth ones are going to be doing. We also have a Pan here. Very powerful caster, unlike his Centaur brethren. And he has a ton of nature gems. Normally I would say this is probably something like Howl, but hopefully Pangaea doesn't quite have the research for that yet. If they have Swarm, that's a different school. So if we see bugs, we won't see wolves. If we see wolves, we won't see bugs. And on our side, right, we have a lot of stuff. We have our well-timed undead that showed up to help us. We have a bunch of ogres on guard commander for our siege strength. And while we have a decent number of mages here, we are mostly just relying on our Vanheres. Our dwarves, at least, should be able to do some Strength of Giants and Legions of Steel. Yeah, so there's Legions of Steel, I think, went down. Yeah, see some more Legions of Steel being prepped. So that'll help out significantly. Yeah, now that these guys have hit by Legions of Steel and they've been blessed, they're at Protection 19, and they haven't berserked yet. So once they berserk, they'll go even higher. Unfortunately, some of our Vanheres did not get properly scripted. These are probably the guys that returned home, so they're going to eat the Lance Charge, which they do decently well, but that's not really who we wanted eating the Lance Charge, so that was just an absolute misscript on my part. So that's not great, but overall it does look like it's working out for us, and we do see the bugs. I wonder what this, maybe the Pan is just punching out a ton of bugs. Yeah, so he gets off 2 casts of Swarm, and then Destruction, which is not a spell I see very often, and I think that just damages or destroys armor. Not really seeing any sign of it here among our Vanheres, though you can see, right, with all these of, well, this guy's not a Vanhere, but a lot of afflictions stacked up on these guys. Obviously, this is the group that's been fighting a lot longer, but still, you know, it's even when we're not losing Vanheres, we are kind of using them up. Unfortunately, our undead are taking banishment. I think the Pans are also decently high level priests. Nope, I lied. They're not priests at all. So it is the Centaurs that are doing that. I was maligning their level of priest that they get, but it's actually kind of painful for us, right? We like that siege strength, and it is evaporating. But still, this is a good result for us. You know, we're relatively slow, and the Centaurs and such are relatively fast, so it's unlikely we get many, if any, of these guys. Yeah, so we managed to pick up 2 of the Centaur casters. You know, not fantastic, but we do kill 36 White Centaur, which is big. And in return, we lose only 3 Vanheres, though we do incur a decent amount of damage and probably afflictions on some of those guys. So that's a bit painful. Also lose, some of our Soulless, some of our Long Dead, a lot of our Surf Warriors. So, we do take significant chaff losses, which of course does hurt in terms of breaking down future forts. As of the moment, we only know of Pangea, so potentially they only have one more fort, which would be good, right? Because the elves forts are not our happy place. We do have some retreats. These are no doubt the human serfs. And then we have a storm in the same location. So now we're trying to take this fortification. No undead here in this battle. Of course, the Vanheres are still misscripted. Actually, I say that they're misscripted, but this might be related to the storm, right? We want these guys to get in as soon as possible and not get caught up in the gate. And they're not very fast, so we kind of need them forward. They still get caught in the gate, so overall not the best plan. But luckily, they're only up against the Maenads. And they have no protection. Also Berserkers, but significantly less effective than our Berserkers, though you do get them for free. But we should be able to take that fort. Yeah, we take a few losses, nothing significant. So this is pretty much all good news for us. Then we have an unexpected event in that location. Barbarian Scouts, fantastic. And we have a worldwide event, Throne of Law. Oh, that's nice. Order +2. This does help us out. Yeah, we're not full order. And that is a scale that we like, so excellent. And I will catch you guys after the jump. Alright, this was the situation and what we did about it. We are striking out immediately from this Pangean fort. Sending our undead out, which I'm not sure I really agree with that in retrospect. Because, yeah, I mean, they really don't provide a lot of combat power. So we kind of prefer to just hold them in reserve so we can hold on to the siege strength. But, we do at least have this Vanhere group, so we should be able to take this province no problem. It's just a question of, like, how many of our undead chaff are we going to lose. On the other hand, right, this does get our undead moving in the direction that we need it to be moving, which is down towards this fort. So, I mean, our siege strength is moving faster. We just are going to be bleeding it off. Then we're also going to slam into 50 werewolves, which, I mean, yeah, our Vanheres can definitely handle this, but taking losses against independents in a war like this, or, while we're in a war like this, always painful. On the other hand, like, we have enough Vanheres here. We might be able to chop through the werewolves without too many losses. This does open us up a little bit more to Kaelasa. But on the other hand, like, having only like one province here that we can move through to get to Pangea would kind of suck, especially if we end up taking all of Pangea's land. It's just nice to have like a little bit of buffer, because again, like, these mountain passes, like, we can't easily get through here. So in future, it'd be relatively easy to, cut us off from our territory, make our life a little bit more difficult. And, more provinces is always nice. And I don't think these werewolves are going to hang out here long, because I don't think it would be that hard for Kaelasa to put together something to take out that stack. But we don't see the Pretender here, so this is a relatively safe move. Just some light Bandar archers and militia. Pretty unlikely that Kaelasa is going to throw that at this werewolf stack. And of course, it's, more or less, yeah, the most direct route to Pangea's capital, which is definitely very relevant. We see a big stack of birds here in Calum, and I'm assuming that they're probably going to be heading towards Arcocephaly pretty quickly. Arcocephaly does look like managed to recruit some of their troops. Not actually sure how they managed that. But there they are, and then the siege by of a Fomorian fort continues on. Looks like we are going to go immediately after that silver mine, so that's nice. We're not reinforcing this group, so now apparently I do believe in the Vanheres. Also getting some site searching done with that random death guy that we got, and sending a dwarf out to get a little bit of earth and fire site searching, both of which we would like, though really what we need is air. So kind of painful looking back on this, not seeing any movement towards air site searching. However, we are starting a Vanadrot, and they are our best commanders to search for air, so I think the thought is wait for the Vanadrot to pop out. He's going to be able to search at, the maximum level rather than relying on a Vanheres, which isn't going to catch every air site. Though a Van Jarl would have the advantage of showing up, one turn sooner, so we can get our site searching started sooner. The Van Jarl also has the benefit of being cheaper, so we are managing to get full sacred recruitment, but we are cutting a mage in this fort. We're also recruiting herdmen. Yeah, and again, even if we cut all these herdmen, we do not have enough for a Vanheres, so just cutting a mage completely, that definitely hurts, but elves are not cheap. We see some Oni here in Yomi's capital. Looks like they've taken a Great Sage. Not especially relevant to us at the moment, but, of course, I've clashed with this player before. It's entirely possible that we'll clash again this game, so any kind of intelligence you can get on your neighbors, always useful. And related to that, we do see some more White Centaur down here in decent number. Yeah, a lot of Harpies. Certainly a decent amount of stuff, but feeling pretty good about this overall. It'd be nice to get some more reinforcements for our army, but I think we can beat what we see at least. And then probably the only other news that's important is it looks like Tianqi is engaged, but it looks like things are going pretty well for them. They're actually sitting on top of Abyssea's capital, and they've cracked it. This is not normal for early age. Normally it's Abyssea that's rushing down, sometimes a Tianqi. So definitely interested in seeing what is probably going to be a storm, and trying to get a little more information on Tianqi. In terms of research, yeah, we're headed for Conjuration 5, and then we have some Evocation queued up after that. That is somewhat speculative, but Storm is very important for this nation, which comes at Evocation 5. And I think that more or less covers turn 23. Alright, welcome back to Full House 7th edition, where we are playing Vanheim. It is turn 24, and we're back to recording these live. Going to be going after some werewolves this turn, if I recall. Hostile seduction attempt. I was kind of wondering why we weren't getting more seductions earlier. So we did at least resist it, and it is a Mound King, which we got for free. It's very unlikely that, yeah, so he's going to die to Swarm, but better the Mound King than our mages. Yeah, the undead are a little bit better at resisting bugs, because they don't care about poison, but way too many bugs for them to deal with. I don't think we were moving out too many of our undead, so this hopefully won't disrupt our operations too much, but I mean, that's the nature of assassins. We have handed out quite a few air gems, so I think we're in better shape. We'll see in the turns to come. And then we catch a battle. I think this is a storm. Femoria, no, okay, they're not even, what are they doing? They're just pinging this province. I thought they'd had it locked down, so I'll have to double check. Clearly not as familiar. Wait, right, yeah, Femoria is the one that's locked inside. So they're just pinging to see what has on top of their fort, and we haven't actually seen Bless yet. Yeah, relatively light, full shock resistance, some reinvigoration, and recuperation, which is kind of interesting. Their sacred units are these Meshushu, which I feel like are not fantastic, but this kind of looks a bit more like a Thug Bless to me, which definitely has plenty of sacred mages, and being half giants, they do have enough hit points that you can arguably thug with them. So yeah, that's an interesting bless, definitely. Don't know enough about early age to say whether or not it's a good bless for them, but it's at least working out at the moment, because is looking pretty powerful. And then we have some attacks, one against Pangea. So this is only our undead. That's definitely a mistake. I thought that there were supposed to be some Vanheres. Perhaps there's another seduction attempt that we're going to see shortly. So I do think we have enough undead to come away with it. But we are going to lose. This is going to work out for us better than I was expecting. But yeah, this is kind of an unnecessary loss of siege strength. There was supposed to be a Vanhere group helping. I'm not seeing any other seduction attempts, so that must have just been a misclick on my part. Part of why I wasn't recording live. I was pretty busy, so these turns went a little quicker than normal, and then hopefully there's been no misclicks, because there are quite a few werewolves here. Yeah, scout report, I don't know, it said like 50 or 60, I don't know how many are actually here. Vanilla werewolves are not fantastic, and I do think we have magic weapons. Yeah, we do, so their invulnerability is not really going to matter. And this is a ton of Vanheres. But, anytime you're fighting independence, when you're, like, at war with someone, it's always, like, a little dicey. And we may have taken a loss or two there. But that said, that province is on the border with, not Lanka, Colossa. So, I was concerned that Colossa was going to snap that up while we were busy. Yeah, so we lose one of our regular units, so that's fine. Although we probably do pick up a few more afflictions on the Vanheres. Yeah, there's always a cost to using the Vanheres. Even when there's no casualties, although, yeah, there's only 42 werewolves, and it's still a lot of werewolves. The Thrones have been very active this game, and then we get raided somewhere by Pangea. A pretty light raiding squad, although decent amount of mage support. Yeah, a lot of nature gems here, probably some bugs. And this is where our Vanhere raiding group that was supposed to be helping our undead out ended up. So yeah, we should be able to deal with Swarm, although there is some danger that our commander gets sniped. Although since we have the PD commander here, the Province Defense Commander, we should be okay. And like, yeah, we do have poison resistance on the Bless as well. That is really the main advantage of the route that I went with natural protection over bark skin, is that, you know, because you don't have to use your nature points on bark skin, you have room to put poison resistance on. And in this case, it does help us out, and I don't think we lose too much there. So it looks like that misclick actually ended up helping us out. We do lose 2 Vanheres, sadly, but we do manage to take out 2 mages. The Pan does escape, unfortunately. But still, the fact that we get to hold on to the province is really nice, because that means we don't have to backtrack to recapture it. And then, yeah, there's a couple of battles in Abyssia, and I thought Abyssia was doing decently well, at least from the game chat, but, you know, you can never really trust the game chat fully. So I believe this is Sauromatia attacking with a bunch of mages, it looks like. Yeah, they've got a lot of warrior sorceresses here, who are decently expensive, as I recall, and I think this is the first time we're seeing their Bless as well. Yeah, and it's your normal kind of rainbowy cavalry Bless, probably imprisoned. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with it. It looks like almost full resistances. Okay, yeah, they're missing cold resistance. That is like traditional, it's the meta one to skip, and like, I don't know, no cold resistance. It can definitely, in an all nations game, that can come back to bite you. Particularly depending on how well Niflheim is doing, although I do think the full poison resistance is a good idea, since Foul Vapors is something that Sauromatia can do nationally. The defense skill they're really going to like. Strength +2 might not be great. Strength is kind of one of the problems for this Sacred. They don't have great strength, so you can see even with the Blessed strength, it's not fantastic. So, you know, they're going to struggle to cut through like some nasty high protection thugs, things like that. They do have magic weapons, okay, so that's good. So yeah, a solid Bless. These are definitely going to be scary. Of course, it's really more for the Oreopatas, who are the actual sacred unit, but there's maybe even more warrior sorceresses here than their sacreds themselves. In terms of what they're up against, yep, they're up against quite a bit. So it looks like they're actually attacking Tianqi, and I think this is on top of Abyssia's capital. So it looks like Sauromatia and Tianqi are, you know, having a discussion about who should get the overall spoils. I will say the warrior sorceresses do make for pretty solid thugs. Yeah, so they've managed to get their protection up to 21. They also have some invulnerability from their tattoos, so their final protection... that's interesting. They must have cast, yeah, bark skin on themselves, and I'm assuming, yeah, they're only getting 10 invulnerability, so that doesn't really stack. Still, 21 protection with Moss Body is pretty good, and, you know, these are going to be some scary thugs, though no gear, really, from what we can see. However, Tianqi has also brought their sacreds, and we haven't seen their Bless for whatever reason. This is like the 3rd Bless we get to see this turn. So here's Tianqi's Bless, a little lighter, but otherwise somewhat similar. Actually, yeah, no, significantly lighter, because no resistances really, which I don't think will be super relevant for this fight, and they've gone for the attack skill rather than the defense skill. They also have Blood Surge, which is going to help quite a bit. And Tianqi's sacreds are decently killy, so I think Blood Surge is at least an okay pick. I mean, it's never a bad pick, but they might struggle to get kills at times, especially since there's no strength on this Bless, and they are just humans. They do have this string of strength, but it looks like that's only hit points, and so they're a little bit stronger. They're a little harder to kill in spring. But I do think that lack of strength, you know, again, could come back to bite them. Also of note, it looks like these guys just have some built-in resistances across the board, so that's pretty cool, and a reason that you can skip out on resistances. Tianqi also has some other sacreds, some of which we see here. Yeah, these river demons are possibly their best summon. They're definitely pretty good, and yeah, these guys have even managed, and they've managed to put a little bit of protection on them, so they're susceptible to fire, but they have pretty high protection. So I would say that Tianqi just has a lot more stuff here, so I think that's going to work out for them, but I doubt it'll be without loss, because yeah, while their sacreds, Tianqi's sacreds that is, are decently killy, they don't have a ton in the way of protection. They're also not going to like all this arrow fire from their own side. Yeah, so there you go. Maybe this isn't going to work out for them. Those Oreopata and the warrior sorceresses are pretty nasty. Now the archers have run out of ammunition, or just in melee, which is not ideal. Yeah, Markata in melee is not really what you want. It's kind of looking like, okay, armies of Sauromatia are routed, so it looks like Tianqi is going to win just barely, because their casters have not routed yet. but they got to be pretty close. So yeah, this is a good battle for the neighbors of these two powers, but a rough battle for both of them. So yeah, the warrior sorceresses did pretty well, 54 kills, but lost over half of them. Losing that many this early, we don't really know how big Sarmatia is, so perhaps they can absorb these losses. You know, it is the end of year 2, so while we haven't done particularly well, maybe Sarmatia is doing much better, but still, that is kind of painful. Like, yeah, they're not expensive, but they're also not cheap. But then, on the other hand, Tianqi, while they don't lose any of their mages, they do lose 16 of their sacreds, who are significantly cheaper, but, you know, still not cheap. And then they lose, I don't know, these Marcata are probably mercenaries, so that's fine. The archers, quite possibly, are also mercenaries, although it's a bit high for a mercenary company, so they might be foreign recruiting these. Anyway, all this to say that, you know, while Tianqi loses a lot of stuff, I think that it's kind of easier to replace these losses for the most part, barring the Warriors of the 5 Elements versus, you know, what Sarmatia lost. So, like I said, a rough battle for both of them. And then we have another attack. This is against, we're finally going to try to clear out this other undead. We don't have a lot here, so this is a little bit scary, although, you know, these Soulless are really bad and Long Dead are pretty bad, so should be fine, even if we get wrapped. We have an elf for a commander, right? We're just better. We're just better than humans. That is the hope. And like, yeah, looks like it's going to work out for us. I don't think we're going to lose anything, so probably should have done this sooner. You know, it is a bit of a desperate struggle against Pangea right now, but we probably could have broken off 6 Vanheres, and that is a very valuable gold province, and we could have been getting earth gems from it as well. So I am trying to get better about clearing out independent provinces faster. I think the best players just block the attacks, assuming that they get notified. Now, this was not an attack that we got notified about, so there's no opportunity to block the attack. But the sooner you can clear it out, the better. And like with Sacreds as strong as we have, like, yeah, we should have just taken 1 turn of recruitment, and we didn't need all the Vanheres that we brought against Pangea, at least not yet. And then it looks like Tianqi had issued a storm command against Abyssia, so either they were feeling very confident about that Sarmatian attack, or they weren't expecting it. But there's not a whole lot here for Abyssia, and it doesn't really look like gems have been handed out, although it looks like they mostly have warlocks. Yeah, so there's only one warlock here that actually has any fire paths, and they probably just don't have any blood slaves, since it is a little on the early side to be doing some blood hunting, although in a desperate situation, I do think blood hunting your capital is probably the play, but there is so little here from Tianqi that this might actually work out for Abyssia. Yeah, the warlocks are just blinking around the battlefield because, you know, there's not a lot of research, and like low-level astral mages and low-level blood mages with no blood slaves just don't really have a whole lot to be casting, so they appear to just be seeking suicide, you know, rolling the dice. This is like the astral mage form of Russian roulette. You know? Let's just keep blinking and see what happens. All that said, like, the wall defenders are hopefully at least okay in melee, since they have absolutely no ranged component. Abyssia does at least get a mage leading their, you know, wall defenders, but with the low level of research, he's only casting low level evocations, which like might work out. This is one of the saddest battles I've ever seen, but it does look like it's going to work out for Tianqi, and just kind of highlights that Abyssia has some pretty terrible wall defenders. But that does look like it works out for Abyssia, and, you know, could be a relatively important win, although depending on what Sarmatia has to follow up with. You're right, Sarmatia is definitely aware that Tianqi took a lot of losses, and obviously they're interested in Abyssia, so, you know, we'll probably leave our scout in place and, you know, see what's going on. It's not super relevant for us, and in some ways this is actually kind of bad news, because both of these powers do border Calum, who we're probably going to need some help with. But at this point, also borders Calum, and is looking a lot stronger, so probably should reach out to I think would be the best ally against Calum. These two look like they're going to be, well, not Abyssia. Abyssia's I think they're eliminated. Yeah, so Abyssia was vanquished, but Sarmatia and Tianqi look like they're going to be locked in struggle here and aren't really going to be in a position to help anybody. And then we have some unexpected events. It looks at least one of those results in an independent attack. Yep, barbarians, great. So yeah, I'm not sure where this is. And hey, some copper deposits, that's nice. I think that's resources, though I'm not sure if this borders, I think it borders that fort that Pangea built, which is nice because it's a bramble fort, so probably doesn't have a lot in the way of resources. Hey, and then some barbarian attacks. This is an upcoming one. So this is a chance for me to block it. I will try to do that. And then speaking of barbarians, of course, perhaps our province defense will save the day. Oh, this is the fort. Fantastic, that we just took. And yeah, we didn't really leave anything. There are some ogres in here, which I guess we could use to clear these barbarians, but that's like earth gems. I don't know. We'll probably detach some Vanheres. I don't know. Barbarians actually are going to be kind of a little on the nasty side for our Vanheres to deal with. Yeah, eventually we'll build a thug that can deal with these problems, but we're not quite there yet. And then sadly we get patrolled out somewhere. Or no, excuse me, we patrol out a Sauromatian scout who is sitting on top of our capital, so we're happy to get rid of that, although like I said, Sauromatia definitely seems like they're going to be busy in the short term and they don't actually border us. We're under siege by the barbarians, but it doesn't really matter. And then Baratos was also eliminated, which I think had something to do with, but not 100% on that. And I will catch you guys after the jump. Alright. This is the situation and what we're doing about it. Things are starting to look a little better for us, although I don't think we're going to be winning this game. I've kind of discussed at length the issues with this build, and we'll probably do so again in a review. But, you know, at this point, not a ton of magic has come online, and we have a good amount of our sacreds, and they've been stacking up pretty well against Pangea. We've won a couple pivotal battles. We've taken infrastructure off of them. We do see a stack of white Centaur here, probably quite a few, though there's more harpies. Also, yeah, it's probably still just the standard province defense, but there's a good chance there'll be an increase in the amount of province defense, so we do need to be careful about just immediately rushing in. Also, unfortunately, it looks like Pangea set up another bramble fort down here, so they're doing a good job of, you know, getting infrastructure up. So we may actually go after this fort first. I'm not sure. Probably we'll go after Pangea first, because we can't really leave the white Centaur production behind our main army, and we probably don't have enough forces to really split. You know, if we do leave Pangea open while we're trying to sit on top of this fort, you know, they'll be able to go raid a bunch in our lands. But we do want to try to pin them in place, so we're going to move a good amount of our forces. Yeah, the majority of our forces here. We've moved our worst garbage out in front here. I actually thought these guys were not mindless, but I was mixing them up with ghouls. They are mindless, which means they're not very good at holding up the walls, so they're good siege strength, but not good siege defense. So was planning on using them to hold up the walls here in this fort, but instead we left behind the ogres. Since the ogres do at least provide, you know, pretty good siege defense. Of course, now we have a bunch of barbarians on top of the fort, and this is also, we know there's at least one dryad here, so, you know, there's a chance that she'll assassinate again, and, you know, I was thinking about trying to break out with our ogres, and then maybe sending some of our garbage in, but that would be losing a lot of our siege strength to the barbarians, so we're probably going to break out with the ogres and then use this raiding force, like heavier raiding force, to take out the barbarians. That's assuming that we do not get assassinated inside of the fort. If we do, then we'll probably sneak inside, collect the ogres, and then break out. And then we'll take the ogres out of there. I was planning on leaving this here because I was concerned about Agartha, but Agartha reached out and said they were interested in a non-aggression pact, which at this point I went ahead and took. I think between, you know, what we have to do with Pangea, and then, you know, Caelum provides a lot of opportunity, and with how close Caelum's capital is to our capital and the way that our territory is starting to develop, right, due to this Pangea situation, I just think a conflict between myself and Caelum is somewhat inevitable, and that will definitely take, you know, all of our efforts. Also, like, you know, Yomi is up here. We have a non-aggression pact with them, but obviously, like, not super friendly with the player. So, you know, if we misstep at any point badly, I think they'll attack. So, certainly could be useful to have someone that's relatively friendly. Agartha is relatively small, so, you know, maybe should have, you know, rebuffed that offer. But at the same time, like, this is going to be kind of nasty for us to deal with. We've talked about how, you know, the elves in some ways are a little more susceptible to the mine blasters, simply because we don't have a lot of units, we don't have a lot of mines. We have better magic resistance, so that helps, but I think until we get anti-magic, it'll still be a little on the painful side. So anyway, with this border secure, we will be able to pull the ogres out, which we'll definitely want to try to crack Pangea relatively quickly, but we're going to wait until we can bring, the rest of our Vanheres down. So we're moving a stack of Vanheres out. This is where the barbarians, in theory, are going to show up. So we'll have these Vanheres, and then we split out a few guys to go raid down here. So, we'll move them together, and we'll probably actually just raid with our main force, just kind of back and forth, try to take this, maybe catch some raiders while we wait for this force to work its way down. It won't be able to move through this mountain pass, so we'll have to sneak through Caelim's territory. And then once we have, everything together, then we can try to jump on top of Pangea for the final battle. We have distributed air gems. We are moving a scout down to take over air gem carrying duty. This is kind of dangerous. I did not plan this enough. Brought a few too many air gems, but this guy does have the stone bird. He is a Vanjarl. He has a stack of air gems, so he should do decently well in an assassination battle. We'll see. Probably the worst thing about this fort down here is that triads are probably popping out of it at a horrific rate of 1 per turn. So, I said yeah, we're not going to have to deal with as many assassins. That's not really true anymore. Yeah, but haven't done too much Diplo, so in terms of the wider world, let's see, yeah, we saw that this is where Fomoriya poked their head out. We should talk to sooner rather than later, because I do think that is going to be our likeliest ally against Caelim. We may also reach out to Yomi. Yomi has a relatively small border with Caelim, and we would prefer that they not, get Arcocephaly. Of course, Arco is not completely dead yet, so that is good news. But I can't imagine that they'll be lasting too much longer. And of course, all of this is predicated on us winning against Pangea. And also, Agartha has mentioned that Kael'thasa has some interest in attacking us, which is sad. So we may have to hold off on Caelim, even further. I was thinking about reaching out to Kael'thasa and, seeing if I could convince them to go elsewhere. Certainly, Tianqi seems like they would be a good target for Kael'thasa. They don't have a massive border, but, we do know that Tianqi just lost a lot of their units, and they have, a throne here on the border. So there are other places that Kael'thasa could go. I'm honestly a little surprised. I really was expecting that, Vanheim's reputation would provide, a little more protection in terms of people not wanting to attack. But maybe I was misreading that, right? Maybe people feel that it's okay, Vanheim is really threatening and scary, so let's take them out, especially since I'm not that large yet. Maybe we'll never be that large, but certainly at the moment, we're not massive. So maybe they look at it and it's here's a really dangerous nation, but they're not that big, so I have an opportunity to take them out. But I mean, we can see how that worked out for Pangea. And I don't think Kael'thasa really has anything that we can't deal with, and I don't think they're going to be able to deal with our stack of Vanheres. But Kael'thasa is definitely large enough. It looks like we haven't fully scouted their territory, but we will struggle to take them down with our current forces. We really need to get our raiders online so that we can take a lot of territory quickly. So with that, let's talk research. Yeah, so we're currently set to go to Conjuration 5, which we don't have a ton of air gems. I have not been great about site searching for air. Yeah, here's a place that we're missing, and then we're sneaking back, mostly because we need to, get our troops moving. We are finally, we're about to get our Vanadrot, so he'll definitely be out, site searching for air, and I think we're getting a Vanjarl here as well, so he'll probably also do some site searching for air. But our air income, I think, is, we found one site, or actually I don't even think we found it. We just captured it. So we have done a little bit of site searching for air, but I do think that as Vanheim, you should search for air harder and faster than I have. And part of that is just because things have not gone well for us this game. But I have also just not really prioritized it enough. Also related to that, of course, we have been spending a good amount of air gems on Alquils. Of course, you can see that the research situation, even with the Alquils and our Pretender researching, our research is not great. Obviously, if we'd gotten bigger faster and had more forts and were producing more mages, we'd be in a better place. But Vanheim is not a speedy researcher. But since we did go the route of the Alquils, now at this point, going the route of full air elementals, that is a big power spike, but we don't really have the air gems to support it. We could probably pull off one. I mean, a lot of our air gems, we did have an air gem on pretty much everyone, so this is a little deceptive. We do have more air gems than that, but our income is pretty poor. So, you know, we can support 1 or maybe 2 battles where we really dump a lot of air elementals. We also don't really have the mages yet to take advantage of that. Like, we are starting to build up. Like, what, we have 2 Vanjarls here, and yeah, that's pretty much it. We have 2 Vanjarls, right? So, and Vanjarls really are the ones that are going to be summoning the full-sized air elementals. Vanherses, not really. If you put up a storm and you give them extra gems, yeah, they can pull off full-sized air elementals, but you know, that's even more expensive and requires research that we don't have. So yeah, kind of already look. This turn has rolled. I did kind of go back and forth on this. The other option, of course, being just going straight for Evocation 5. I think it is 5 where we get the Storm. Yeah, so Storm is going to be really nice for us. And, you know, of course, at Evocation 4, yeah, we get Thunderstrike, although, again, that's really more of a Vanjarl thing. So we really do want to try to transition into Vanjarls more. Like, certainly once we get Pangea, we'll hopefully get another fort up. Or at least, actually, one nice thing is that this fort is on top of an independent mage, a nature mage. So, you know, thank you, Pangea, for that. We do not have to build a fort on top of, you know, nature indies. Although that said, you know, these guys are not stealthy, whereas, well, we can't see it because there's some dogs here, but there are stealthy nature mages here. So we may still fort this, or maybe at least put a lab and a temple, just so we can have stealthy nature support, but we'll see. Anyway, we'll definitely want one fort that's, you know, dedicated to producing Vanjarls, because without Vanjarls, a lot of this research isn't going to be that useful. But yeah, so we're going for full-size air elementals, and then Storm for the Thunderstrike, and it will make our Vanherses better. And then, of course, I don't have it queued up. Oh, actually, no, wait, hold on. We already have Construction 4. So never mind then. So yeah, we should definitely start focusing on this. Although, of course, you know, more mages you have forging, the less gear you have. We also haven't really been able to utilize our Pretender, right, to do a bunch of site searching. We are sort of limited in terms of what we can search for. We do have a few dwarves out searching now, like in the more safe areas of our territory. But we do have to be really worried about like the dryads, and yeah, we really can't afford to lose our Pretender because then our Bless goes offline, and then we're in big trouble. But probably next turn, you know, we'll get some of these dwarves producing like some kit, so that we can, you know, set up some Vanherses that are going to be able to, you know, raid various provinces. That's less important right now because Pangea is a little bit down to it in terms of territory. But you know, to the south here, there's definitely some raiding we could do. But once we go up against a larger opponent, it's really going to be essential. So we need to start transitioning into that. But yeah, I think that more or less covers turn 24. And of course, since this is the start of a new year, it is time to do a tour of the F keys. So we're 24 turns in, but we only have 14 provinces. This is not great, right? Like, yeah, even though this is a smaller map, right? So it's not expected necessarily that you end up with 12 provinces at the end of expansion. Like, you could easily, even in a game this small, you could end up with 14 provinces at the end of turn 12. So, you know, we're definitely behind. We can see that from some of our neighbors, significantly larger. We can also see that our, you know, site searching has been lackluster. Now, Vanheim is fairly focused in terms of its magic paths other than the dwarves, right? So, you know, we've managed to get a little bit of death site searching done with that lucky independent that we got. Our earth site searching is actually in the best shape, partially just because most of our dwarves, I don't know, most, but yeah, the Earth 3 has been the most common random for our dwarves, but yeah, we talked about the air site searching, not great. We did get our fire dwarf is out and starting to do a little bit of site searching, but you know, it hasn't been great. That said, you know, we have found some magic sites, so we've gotten decently lucky. It is early age after all. But yeah, we're certainly going to want to kick this into much higher gear, particularly because, like I said, we're going to want to start doing some forging. So not great in terms of the nation overview. And then as far as graphs go, but yeah, I think the province graph pretty much demonstrates like how this game has not been going fantastic. We at least had like steady expansion, but you can see like a couple gaps here, and it was never particularly fast, right? This is pretty much like a one province a turn, you know, sort of thing. We don't really have any jumps. And then, like, you know, when we started I'm guessing this is when we started the war against Agartha, we made decent progress. And then, you know, once Pangea jumped in, it's a whole different story. But like, we're back on the upswing. So, you know, we're in better shape. But, you know, this wasn't an ideal war for us. Also, infrastructure wise, we did manage to get, you know, one additional fort up, but that's it. We've only built one fort, and that's not great. Now, we did just take another fort, so that's nice, although again, it's a bramble fort, so it's not as good. We're not going to be able to produce, as many troops out of it. That said, we don't need a lot of resources really, so it might not be as bad. Although we do need, elves need a lot of recruitment, and I do believe that the type of fort influences, how much recruitment points you get out of it, and I can't imagine the Bramble Fort is great for that. Income-wise, this is more or less going to track our provinces. I wouldn't say we've gotten too many rich provinces. It's been a bit of a poor map for us, and that is also just partially because it's early age. But anyway, this is where our income is at. Gem income, also going to look somewhat well. You see, we didn't really do any site searching during expansion, which is fairly normal. And then, we found a few gems, took some losses. I would actually say, either PNG has been luckier or has done more site searching than us. Because as we've started to take Pangean land, I mean, some of this is our gems that we're getting back. But some of this is definitely additional gems that we did not have. So thank you for that, Pangea. Research, not in great shape. You can see we had to, take some mages off duty, right, to go deal with things. It is at least increasing. Like I said, Vanheim, not exactly a research powerhouse. Dominion also has not been great. You can see that there's been a lot of downturns here, so it is moving up. And that's less essential for us, but yeah, still, it would be nice to get our Dominion moving a little faster. We do have that untaken throne in our cap circle, which, well, I mean, there's the Throne of Bones, which we took, and we don't currently hold because we have to recapture it, or rather reclaim it. So there are a lot of tools, a lot of dormant tools that we can use to really push our Dominion, and hopefully we'll get to turn those on soon, but until we do, yeah, our Dominion is kind of struggling a bit. There's even some of our own territory outside of the territory that we've taken from Pangea, some of our own territory from expansion that doesn't have our Dominion in it. On an army size, this is going to be relatively small. We can't really see this because there's no one to compare it against. But somewhat you can just see that one event from the Throne of Bones, a massive increase to our army size. But this is pretty normal, right? We rely on the fact that our individual units are really good, rather than giant masses. And then of course ascension points. We did briefly have one, and then we got it knocked off. Doesn't really matter so much. We can see, let's see, what is this, early age Ulm? No. I'm not sure who this is. There's a couple of people, it looks like, that are up to 2 ascension points, but this is a pretty large game. It's still relatively early, so this isn't too relevant yet. And then we have the Hall of Fame. Sadly, we don't have anyone up here yet. So, we really haven't done a great job thugging. I'm still not great with thugs yet, and I do think it's a bit difficult. Well, if we don't have a great thug bless. So if we had a bless that was better for our thugs, then we would have been able to thug with our Vanherses, to a lesser extent our Vanjarls. I mean, the Vanjarls actually, they make better thugs, but I think they're so valuable that you probably should mostly focus on thugging with the Vanherses. So anyway, if we had a more thug-focused Vanherse bless, then we could have started thugging with them earlier. We still probably could get away with it in some cases, although I find that with our bless as is, they do actually struggle, unkitted against 6 province defense. Even with construction 2 gear, they struggle. But, we can see there's other elves, right? Helheim and TNN are up here with some heroes, so they probably have, blesses that better support their thugs. And, I knew that this bless was a compromise with the Vanheres. So that was part of the plan, right? And now that we have construction 4 up, and once we start forging gear, hopefully we'll get some heroes up here. Not that being a hero is essential, but I do think it is a bit of a measure in terms of well, who's really being successful using their thugs. Other than our fellow elves, we have a lot of the usual suspects, Diones, those warrior sorceresses. A couple of them are heroes. Nifl Jarl, of course, Fomorian King, yeah, somebody from Hinnom. So, yeah, normal early age kind of stuff, although there is 1 mercenary up here, but, no, wait, 2 mercenaries. But, yeah, overall, mostly player units at this point. And then in terms of who is still alive, let's see. So we just saw Abyssia get defeated, and then Mictlan has also been defeated. So yeah, at this point we have 6 defeated players. So, there's still quite a few people in this game. Probably some of these guys are down to it. Obviously, we saw Lanka get defeated. Nobody on this list is a result, of us defeating them, and that is Definitely not according to plan. You know, with this bless as strong as it is, you know, definitely the plan was to try to kill someone relatively early, and you know, we failed at that, and that is really mostly due to their, you know, excellent diplomacy in bringing someone else in. But hopefully, in the not too distant future, hopefully by the next time we're doing a review like this, we'll have at least eliminated Pangea. So anyway, that is the state of the world. We just finished talking research, but you know, here it is again. No one has any global enchantments up yet. That's pretty normal, although we are starting to get to the point where, like Mother Oak, you know, we might expect that to come up relatively soon. And then here's our gem income. Yeah, we've talked site searching. It's not in a great place. At least our earth income is in a pretty good place, which is nice, right? Because there is a good amount of earth gear that we want to be forging for our thugs. So, and of course, you know, hammers require a lot of earth gems, so we can kind of, you know, turn earth gems into other gem types. But you know, we do need to at least have like some income in those other types. And there's quite a few gem types that, you know, we just, well, okay, 3 gem types that we have absolutely no income in. We are also doing no blood hunting, and that is definitely something that Vanheim can do. So we will want to get into that sooner rather than later. We're definitely, you know, behind on that as well. I'm not particularly good at blood. I'm still relatively new to it, so that's part of it. And then of course, you know, the game hasn't really gone our way so far, but we will want to get into that. So yeah, we're definitely behind the curve in terms of our site searching. And then we have done a little bit of forging, right? We have some hammers that aren't in use right now. We, you know, are really trying to get some of that research done. Although, like I said, we'll probably start forging next turn, and you know, really start to pop out some gear. And as discussed, we've claimed no thrones. In this game, we have a mix of, you know, level 2 thrones and level 1 thrones, which is going to be a little interesting in terms of trying to get the 16 ascension points. I haven't counted it, but I'm assuming that we have more thrones than normal, since you're going to need to hold more thrones than some of the other full house games. So far, you know, everything is pretty split, and I don't even think anybody's at 2 thrones. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I was wondering, I'm like, how do we saw some people at different points in the, you know, in the ascension graph, but that's because some people hold level 2 thrones and some people hold level 1 thrones, but nobody's actually managed to get a hold of, or at least no one's managed to claim 2 different thrones yet. And with that, that covers our yearly review.